YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back with some more NFL draft prospect rankings. On to the tight ends today. We've done videos for quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, and offensive linemen. This upcoming week, we're going to start with the defensive players, of course. Got to get to our top 50 players or our big board and a lot more updated mock drafts, different types of mock drafts. Fan voted mock draft, we'll react to that. All kinds of content for the NFL draft, and it's right around the corner. Really excited for that. Join us for all that content. Subscribe, follow our Twitter. Constant talk on there. Fan voted mock draft. Going to live tweet the entire NFL draft for the most part. Check out walkthemock.com. Use code GOATHOUSE if you do sign up. Link pinned in the comments for anything that you need there, as always. And here's our Twitter. Fan voted mock draft. We're getting through this, and again, I'll make a video reacting to basically your guys' mock drafts. So should be pretty fun. We do that every year. All these graphics, kind of in guide format here, are in one spot for our Patreon members. Patreon link in the comments as well. You got early access too, so we actually have some defensive players already on here actually as I'm talking, but. Yeah, here, Patreon, link in the comments will bring you there. You can sign up for this one or the fourth tier, and that'll get you even more, and that draft guide, of course. So check it out. Be much appreciated. Some superlatives. Kyle Pitts, basically, for almost all of them. Best speed out of tight ends, Pitts. Maybe we could have ranked Pitts with the receivers. I mean, that's how talented he is. Hands, routes, contested catcher. Hey, Tommy Tremble got one with the best blocker out of the class here. Instant impact, of course, is going to be Kyle Pitts. Boom or bust to me is Brevin Jordan. We'll talk about him in a little bit, but he's pretty sneaky athlete, sneaky on the field, kind of getting open, sneaking out, getting wide open, making big plays after the catch as well. But does that type of tight end that doesn't really have any blocking ability or lacking in that department, they don't tend to really work out mainly because they're not in the field all that much. So kind of a boomer bust guy there. Kyle Pitts, even though he's the best one, does have the most upside because he can be an elite NFL player even. Sleeper, Trey McKitty, former Florida State, now with Georgia. I think he's a sneaky good athlete there. Deep sleeper, Jacob Harris from Central Florida. Not a lot of production, but some pretty good athleticism there. Some good speed. Ran a 4.40 at his pro day there. Number one, surprise, Kyle Pitts, tight end and receiver, elite grade for me. I mean, yeah, as rare as they come. You do not see this player really ever. You get some comparisons for Darren Waller and Calvin Johnson. Pretty ridiculous. That's kind of enough said. But, tight end receiver hybrid. He can play inline. People forget that he can play inline tight end. He can block. His blocking stands out, actually out wide. You see him drive guys out of bounds, but he can play in line. Your typical tight end. He can play in a slot, can play outside, as a tight end receiver hybrid. The combination of size and athleticism, you just don't get these guys. All these 6'5" receivers aren't really working out in the NFL because they don't have the speed, they don't get separation, maybe they don't have the best hands, they're kind of just a big body. He's got all of that. It's just, again, as rare as they come. Elite contested catcher will just pluck the ball out of the air. I'm just, mismatch nightmare too. I don't know how you kind of game plan for this guy. I don't know who's going to cover them. We see some adjustments for, have to be made from receivers going from college to the NFL because the cornerback play that they see college to the NFL is just way different. They just can't get the separation. They can't get off the line on these guys. But I'm just thinking, Kyle Pitts, like who is even in the NFL, who's going to cover him? There's some damn good corners. There's some, mainly it's going to be those, his slot players going to be, whether it's a safety, a corner going to have to cover this guy. I don't know. Yeah, I don't think there's a NFL even outside corner that really could press him at that high of a level. You could compare him to Mike Evans as well. It's another one. If we want to talk about a guy, that's playing right now, Waller and Mike Evans combined, he's faster than both of them. It's just a rare type of player trying to find comparisons, but he's kind of a mixture of guys combined. And he's very good after the catch, too. One of the best stiff arms I've ever seen, full speed. Was that against Ole Miss? It was against Ole Miss. Full speed, and he puts his arm behind him and stiff arms the guy, and that's how he escapes. I don't think I've ever seen that. I was out of my seat watching that game live when he did that. So he's just an absolute freak. Why pass on him? I've heard there's some teams that just don't like him at tight end. Maybe those teams don't really feature a tight end that much, and they, for their concepts, their scheme, their system, I should say, he'll be a receiver, and they may just like other receivers better. They may view Jamar Chase or Devontae Smith or Jalen Waddle is just better receivers. Some teams will have him at receiver and have him at number 1 receiver. So it's not really a negative here, but that just might be why teams may pass on him. It's pretty tight. After is a big gap after Kyle Pitts, but it's pretty tight. You can definitely debate, these players. I got Tommy Tremble at number 2 from Notre Dame. You can play fullback as well, tight end / fullback. I think his best ball is ahead of him. I think he's going to be much better in the NFL. His blocking just stands out so much when the rest of the guys, don't present anything wow, and maybe they're a little bit lacking in the blocking department. So that was kind of the slight difference, and I think Tremble, you could debate he has the most upside out of this group, but Kyle Pitts exists, of course. There's some people talking about him in the second round. I wouldn't really be against that. The rest of these guys here, the next few guys, kind of in that round 3, round 4 range, though. But just such a dominant blocker. He wants to block. He's a bully of a blocker. On the line, downfield, you see him get downfield, kind of lead blocking the way for running backs. He can run with them. He's outrunning those guys. So I mean, he's a very good athlete too. I think he's an explosive athlete for a guy that's a blocker. I think best in the class in terms of blocking. Sneaky pass catcher too. Notre Dame didn't use him a whole bunch as a pass catcher, but when he would leak out, you can use him in a sneaky way, because he's blocking. You're just worried about him blocking, and then all of a sudden he's out, and he can use his athletic ability to get out there, catch the ball, and run after the catch too. He's actually not easy to bring down after the catch. It's almost like a running back. We talk about he can play multiple positions. Doesn't have a lot of receiving production, so the team's kind of just looking for that, the receiver type tight end. Maybe he's not for them. They'll probably look at Freiermuth or somebody like that, but Brevin Jordan before Tommy Tremble. So it's all going to be, it's tough with the tight ends. You can't really knock a team for taking we'll say 4th or 5th ranked guy ahead of Tommy Tremble because that's just the type of the guy they're looking for. So, and he didn't drop the ball a whole lot, but he did have some bad ones. So his hands could be a little more reliable there, but not really super worried about that. Just a dominant blocker. Number 3, also a 3rd round grade, Pat Freiermuth from Penn State. Could sneak in the 2nd round as well, but kind of got that nickname Baby Gronk. I never liked dishing out that nickname. There's quite a few tight ends that get it. I don't know if he'll live up to that, but he is a big target for sure. Big target. Pretty solid athlete in route runner. Good footwork for that size. Nothing wow about it, but for that size, pretty solid. I think he's really good catching in traffic. If he has to kind of go over his shoulder, go up and get it with a guy on him, going over the guy, catching it, he's pretty tough to bring down too after the catch. A couple guys, you're going to have to wrap him up. I don't think NFL defenses are going to have, too much of a problem really, but that's what you see on tape. Why pass on him? I think there's flashier guys that kind of, wow you a little more in some aspect of the tight end position, and he definitely needs to improve as a blocker. That's why it's tough with the tight ends too. There's some of these guys that I just don't think teams are going to have on the field a whole lot. Got to try to figure out when they're going to have them on the field. And that's another reason maybe why Tremble's number 2. He's going to be on the field for blocking, his blocking ability, and he's a sneaky athlete. So that's kind of what separates tight ends. Guys that I think could be on the field more than the rest of them, could be used in more ways. But he's definitely a hell of an athlete and will be an impact for sure. Number 4, I got Hunter Long, another big body tight end. Really strong hands, pretty good at tracking. Not a guy that you think could track the ball and move, with the ball dropping in. Pretty damn good at it, especially for a big body guy. Yeah, I think he's not fast. That's it's not really a negative for him, but it's something you always wish guys are faster. But for that big of a guy, I think he's plenty fast enough. Ran in the 4.6s. Good contested catcher, in traffic, middle of the field. That kind of goes with the, 3rd down, or if Boston College was going for it on 4th down, it was kind of just stare at Hunter Long. He's going to stop at the sticks, turn around, and come back, and we're going to fit the ball in there, and he's going to have to try to snatch it from somebody. Saw a lot of that, and that is where he really stands out to me. And he also can block, too. He doesn't really stand out big time as a blocker, but he's going to block better than some of these other guys in this range. So he might be a little safer than some of the other, maybe Pat Freiermuth, who's 3rd. He actually might be a little safer because he can be on the field to block. He can be on the field on crucial downs to catch the ball. So he might be a little safer. He's just, again, neither of those guys really wow a whole lot. Maybe Freiermuth does a little more flashy, perhaps. Yeah, Hunter Long isn't the quickest guy, doesn't get a whole lot of separation, but he showed that he didn't really need to, but will he need to against NFL linebacker / defensive backs. Number 5, kind of in the same range here, Brevin Jordan. There's a lot of people hyped on Brevin Jordan. Yeah, he's definitely, if you're going to take the highlights out and just watch those, those people are going to be pretty high in him, and those are fun moments. But kind of looking at everything, I'm just a little lower on him than everyone else. But at the same time, like I brought up a little bit ago, that's kind of how I rank the tight ends. How good they are mainly, but how often are they going to be used at the NFL level? He needs to get a lot better as a blocker. He's not really going to play in line. He's kind of going to play in the slot. And teams are kind of, this class is loaded with slot receivers on top of that. Teams just rather maybe use a receiver there. So he definitely does need to work on his blocking ability. A lot of his production was kind of just schemed, just wide open, but yeah, he was sneaky in that aspect, and he was really good after the catch. He's got very good ball skills, almost like a receiver, but he's running in the 4.6s. I think he's more quick than fast. Yeah, we talked about solid, after the catch could be a slot tight end, a move tight end option. But yeah, I think just to separate, splitting hairs here, I think there's more negatives for him than the other guys. But mainly there's more reasons to have the other guys on the field more often. And I think Brevin Jordan's kind of replaceable with the receiver. So most people have Brevin Jordan around tight end 3, 4. I like him. He's fun to watch. But I got him at 5 for those reasons there. But could be a solid addition. It just depends on the scheme. Again, some teams these days rather just take a slot receiver or just move a receiver there. And some teams just want that tight end. They want to make the defense think a little bit. So it just depends on the system there. Next group of guys here, we'll have a spreadsheet released closer to the draft. I'll tweet it out, so make sure you follow our Twitter to get that. It'll have way more rankings than just 10 for all these prospects. Kenny Yeboah, I like Kenny Yeboah from Ole Miss. Problem with him is he kind of just a receiver tight end? Is he another one of those move tight ends? Almost an out wide tight end. If he could play in line, if he had proof that he can play in line, we'll be talking about maybe the second best tight end in this class. Long, pretty athletic, good catching in traffic. The way he moves and catches the ball, maybe a little more athletic. Maybe a prime Jared Cook. The problem is Jared Cook was actually a tight end. He can play in line. He can actually block. But just kind of the way he moves, catches the ball, kind of reminds me of younger Jared Cook. But you can't really compare the two for the reasons I said. But Yeboah is pretty sneaky. Also coming from, that Lane Kiffin offense where tight end isn't valued that much, and he still was pretty productive. So there's the good things. Looked pretty good at the Senior Bowl as well. Trey McKitty, most people have him ranked a lot lower. I like him, looking at him at Florida State and Georgia. Pretty sneaky catching the ball, really good after the catch, got pretty good athleticism, maybe like a poor man's Jonnu Smith, the way he kind of carries the ball afterward. Jonnu Smith could be used as kind of an H-back at the same time. So not in that aspect, but he's a sneaky good guy here. I think somebody's going to get a good football player here around this range. Noah Gray's a tough one, too, because he's got really good tape, really good catching the ball over the middle. Kind of gives you the vibes of that type of tight end. That almost, you can't compare him to him, but almost, kind of that Travis Kelce tight end kind of creates separation. Very, very poor man's. But then the problem why you can't compare him to him mainly, because he's not as good, but mainly is because, is he an inline blocking tight end? He looks like that type of mold, but is he? Is almost like a receiver tight end in a inline tight end's body and movement, So that's the tough part with him. But he was pretty good for Duke. I also don't like Duke's offense. I don't like how they ran things in an offense, play calling, but system-wise. So that could have been the problem as well. So it's a tough evaluation on him, though. But you like what you see. Jacob Harris, not a lot of production at all, but he's a freak athlete. UCF didn't really feature the tight end. It was kind of a, spread, air it out to the receivers, whatever receiver they had every single year there. But so maybe an NFL team that wants an athletic tight end, they could feature him a little more, a lot of upside, a little bit up there in age compared to the rest of the group. 4.40 40, though. Pretty damn impressive. And then Kylan Granson from SMU, heck of an athlete, really good after the catch, tries to run people over, was really, utilized in that SMU offense. Problem with him, he's a little undersized. Does he have to be used kind of like a utility guy, a fullback, something like that? That's kind of the problem. Maybe similar to Josiah DeGuara, who went from Cincinnati to the Packers last year. I like DeGuara a little more, so maybe a lot more. So it's kind of the poor man's version of that, where he's kind of an undersized tight end, but kind of a technician, pretty tough after the catch. So, yeah, it's kind of this year's DeGuara, but going to be picked much later. there. Not the greatest tight end. Last year, it was better than last year's, though. Tight end class. Better than last year's, but there's some down sneaky guys. Yeboah and McKitty. Those are sneaky guys in this class. They could end up being, they can battle for maybe the second best in this class when it's all said and done, realistically. So I think that's where it's strong, right there. Maybe early 5th round. They possibly can go late 4th. I'm thinking early 5th, though. Sneaky guys there for sure. Again, I'll release through our Twitter a spreadsheet with all the rankings with way more than 10 or 15, whatever we've been doing, with all the grades on there. So you want to follow our Twitter for that. Something to keep handy for the NFL draft, of course. We'll have you covered anything you can think of NFL draft-wise before, during, after it. So join us, subscribe, smash that like button. Following our Twitter is very important. Any link that you're looking for is in the comment section there and or the description. But yeah, that's going to do it for this one. On to the defensive prospect rankings this upcoming week. So excited about that. But yeah, that's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.